People, milling, pushing, jostling. That first impression of chaos. Look a little deeper. A pattern emerges of multiple communities deeply rooted in tradition, yet flexible enough to make India the world's largest democracy. The first recorded history of a planned social order is found in the ruins of the Indus Valley civilization.
This is the Acropolis at Lothal, overlooking the shipping activity at the docks. There is evidence that trading activity extended beyond India's shores. There is evidence that the arts and the crafts flourished here. There were assembly halls where people could meet and deliberate. And the worship of female energy in the shape of the mother goddess, the worship of plants, animals, the sun, the beginnings of the family system, and all those colorful rites and rituals which make up the universe of traditional Indian life had their roots here. And they point to an evolved sensibility.
Though the transition from hunting to farming was made almost 2,000 years ago, it is in these ruins that one finds evidence of an elaborate social structure, of an economically secure and well-integrated community. The individual was part of a greater family, sustaining it and sustained by it. As in the parallel civilizations of Egypt and Sumer, man saw himself as part of a huge canvas, spanning not just the years of his life, but even beyond. The folk communities of modern India have preserved this tradition, deriving fortitude from their ancestors, strengthened by their bond with nature. They are attached to life amidst deprivation and often exploitation.
Mother Earth, let no famine visit our land. We are sowing one seed, let each seed become 100. Let our land and the world be in peace. Let our crops flourish. Let no creepers enmesh the head, nor thorns prick when we enter the forest. Let no snakes bite us. Below Dhartani, you quiet ancient Mother Earth, above Dharma, the God of justice, and we offer this insignificant small offering to you. For the tribals, everything is inspired in the nature, everything is infused with life, everything there is a spirit in nature. So man, the individual, society, nature, ancestors, God, integrated into a total vision of life which gives a deep anchorage, power to sustain unhappiness, power to sustain tragedy, which perhaps we have lost in modern society.
Modern life, with its notions of middle-class morality, has also sought to destroy the ghotul, or dormitory system of the folk communities. This centuries-old system brought together the youth and taught them that freedom of choice goes hand in hand with responsibility towards the larger society.
गोटुल हर गांव में होता है। ये गांव में किसी एक अलग जगह पर ये लोग एक तरह का घर बनाते हैं और रात को अपने घर से खाना वाना खा के वो आएंगे, यहाँ आकर वो बैठेंगे और गोटुल के जो वरिष्ठ सदस्य हैं वो अपने नए सदस्यों को जिसको अपन ओरल ट्रेडिशन कहते हैं उस तरह से वो उनको गीत, नाच और संगीत ये सिखाते हैं।
The ghotul is a lesson in community living where work is shared. Here young people are free to choose partners and express their appreciation of each other. The pairing could result in marriage. If not, there is no stigma attached. It is the rhythm of tradition that keeps the social order from disintegrating. Tradition is what brings the Indian back to his roots, however far he may fly. Balbir Kaur is an air hostess with India's international carrier, Air India. Her family belongs to the Adharmi, a lower caste. Yet, her father, Pyarelal, dared to dream. He sent his children to school. Balbir took up the challenge and changed the pattern of centuries. This young girl, who could once tell the time only by seeing the lengthening shadows of trees, now travels the globe. Balbir's life straddles two worlds, one into which she confidently forays and the other to which she returns without questioning.
माजी, अगर बलबीर ने शादी अपने आप ही कर ली तो आप क्या करेंगे?
नहीं, अपने आप नहीं करनी। अपने आप नहीं करनी।
मैं अपने पेरेंट्स को मीन्स ऐसा कोई दुख नहीं देना चाहती कि जिनको मैं कोई गलत कदम उठाऊंगा उनको कोई दुख पहुंचे।
किसी पे उसका मन लग जाए, वो आपकी जात का ना हो, क्या करेंगे आप?
अपनी जात का ही करांगे। अपनी जात का कर भी अदा नहीं कर ली।
किससे शादी करेंगे?
पंजाबी से, अपनी कास्ट से।
So Balbir, who has traveled the world, will still go in for a traditional arranged marriage.
In modern India, arranged marriages have become really, full of questions. First and foremost, girls are educated, but the segregation of the sexes continues largely. There is not enough opportunity for girls and boys to meet each other. Moreover, coming from older tradition is the notion that a boy must be older than a girl, that he must be better educated, that he must earn better. So despite the fact that there are now more opportunities for girls and boys to come together, and the notion that they will find their partners on their own is accepted in principle, you will find many an educated girl who has had the freedom to meet with boys, accepting arranged marriage in the end, because she feels that way she will do better. So do boys.
Marriage bureaus of all shapes and sizes arrange matches with unceasing passion. Computers and priests work in tandem to churn out horoscopes that will ascertain compatibility between couples.
लड़की या लड़के ने किसी लड़के को या लड़की को पसंद किया तो अपने पिताजी को या माता को बताएंगे, लेकिन फिर भी अपने हिसाब से भी वो लोग देखते हैं कि भी इतने साल या इतने महीनों की अफेयर के बाद में हमारी मैरिज लाइफ प्रॉस्पर जाएगी कि नहीं। शादी से पहले जो भी निर्णय लेना है आप ले सकते हैं। तो यंग जनरेशन भी आता है और उनके पेरेंट्स भी आते हैं।
The Indian marriage has never really been conceived of as a relationship between two people. It has been conceived of as an arrangement that serves the family. When you start with that, then choosing a bride for a boy of the family makes a lot of sense. Elders choosing her, others choosing her, because she is chosen in terms of what the family needs. Because they think of the family as a unit, the joint family as an occupational unit.
Every rite and ritual during a marriage ceremony involves not just the bride and groom, but a platoon of relatives. No marriage is complete unless the couple receives the blessings of all the elders. This is important in a society in which age is associated with wisdom. It is also a symbol of acceptance and social sanction. In many homes, most of these relatives stay together in one of India's most enduring social systems, the joint family. Two of the largest banyan trees in the world exist in India. The largest is at Andhra Pradesh, and the second largest is here, at Howrah, in the Botanical Gardens near Calcutta. This tree is about 250 years old. It has nearly 2,000 branches, each with their own root. And though the central trunk has been taken out nearly 100 years ago because it was diseased, the tree flourishes. It's still growing. Its branches are still expanding. Roots are taking shape, and they are all connected to each other. An apt simile, don't you think, for the Indian joint family? In Dharwar, Karnataka, a state in South India, the 138 members of a joint family live together. The head of the family has no difficulty in remembering each one's name.
Iwa kakan maga, ಇವನು ಒಬ್ಬ ತಮ್ಮನ ಮಗ, ಇವ ಕಾಕ, ಇವರು ಒಬ್ಬರು ತಮ್ಮನ ಕುಟುಂಬ.
We are in that sense very relational people, not individuals but dividuals, people who are part of each other, and this is an ideology which you start imbibing right from the beginning. You see it in our language, our words. We have very, very differentiated words for bua, mama, masa, North Indian or South Indian languages. Whereas the Western languages would have only uncle or aunt. To us, it is very important to have different relationships and to know which are these differences.
Perhaps the relatively low rate of divorce and depression in India may be attributed to the support within a joint family system. But with the growth of a consumer-based society, these malaises are raising their heads, albeit slowly. The joint family was also a necessity in an agrarian society, where it was important that ancestral land remained undivided and family professions nurtured from one generation to another.
In a country where there is no outside support system in terms of social security to protect or to cover your, the various kinds of risks because of illness or because of childcare or death in the family and old age, and so in that case, I think the only unit on which you can rely for your security is the family.
With the proliferation of nuclear families, festivals and other celebrations are a time for relatives to get together and reinforce that sense of bonding.
But in the Indian concept of life, in the Indian concept of family life in particular, individuality was not defined as assertion of self over others. It was defined as containing and serving others. If you're able to efface yourself in the service of the family, then by the Indian concept, you have asserted yourself.
Sharda Devi, who lives in the mountains of Himachal Pradesh in northern India, is a case in point. She was compelled to give up her status as wife to accommodate her husband's second marriage. The reason? She could not give him a son. According to tradition, a man or woman is incomplete without a male heir.
लड़का होना चाहिए ना, मैं क्या चलो औलाद तो आगे होनी चाहिए, इस करके दूसरी शादी की है।
खुद तो लाए, तो मैं लाने से पहले ये नहीं ना सोचा भी मेरे को इतने दुख होने। मैं सोचा कि जैसे उन्होंने कहा कि मैं तेरे को तो मतलब पूरा प्यार दूंगा, तुझे जैसे अब रखा इससे ज्यादा तेरे को इज्जत दूंगा, ऐसे ही रखूंगा।
हम तो नाबालिग थे, मतलब हमारे को कुछ पता नहीं था उससे।
Fortunately for Sharda Devi, she has found work with a non-government organization and is economically and emotionally self-reliant. This is the reason she still commands respect in her husband's house. Rural or urban, women in India are facing challenges in their lives and coming out successful. A case in point is Leela Poonawala, an engineer and one of India's highest paid women executives.
In our society, I feel, and many people might not agree with me, I have to think like a man because in my industry, I have to mostly deal with men. And to be able to react and understand how a man thinks is very important for me. I can think like a woman, and I can also understand how a man thinks, and I can handle the situation better.
We also have a very life stage view of women as of men, that all women is not women. Young women is not the same as a mother, who is not the same as a very little girl, so that you should distinguish. And all the Manu stuff and all the bad one was on young women. Mother has always been greatly respected, almost worshipped. Young little girls are supposed to be greatly protected. But going, even accepting all the idealistic way of it, women have not had a good time in the realistically. Theologically, yes. Anthropologically, no.
Indian women are a breed of tough survivors, constantly battling for recognition, even in something like a game of cricket.
No, this academy is only for male, not for female, definitely. And actually, I won't allow any girls to come here and play, definitely no.
The Indian women's cricket team has been quietly making a place for itself in international cricket. Despite little support from the crowds or media, the mood is upbeat.
स्कूल में बेसबॉल खेलते थे हम, पूरे लड़के लोग हमको बैटिंग ही नहीं देते थे उन लोग। तो ऐसा लगता था कि 6 बजे जब it used to get dark, they used to throw the bat and say चलो अभी दे देंगे बैटिंग यार, अभी उसको बैटिंग करने दें।
The future is very, very bright.
The change is slow but visible. In Ahmedabad, Gujarat, a state in Western India, the video camera records it all as it becomes an instrument of dramatic change in the lives of economically backward and illiterate women.
The whole issue is of coexistence, working together and then strengthening each other without fearing each other, and then without exploiting each other. How to coexist, I think that is the thing.
Seva, the Self-Employed Women's Association, is an NGO that helps women on the road to self-reliance. In Ahmedabad, apart from a women's lobby and a bank, it has introduced a program that teaches women to operate video cameras and make films. Through it, the women learn to see themselves and change the way others see them.
जो घर में बैठ के काम करती है बहनें, तो ऐसे बहनों के लिए हम लोग प्रोग्राम बनाते हैं उनके अंदर चेंज लाने के लिए। जैसे कि कोई बहन अगरबत्ती बनाती है तो उनको पैसे कम मिलते हैं, दाम कम मिलता है, तो उससे वो कैसेट हम प्रोग्राम बनाते हैं, बना के हम कमिश्नर को या बड़े अधिकारी को दिखाते हैं, तो उससे बहुत फर्क आता है।
The stories are all based on personal experiences. Some represent abstract thoughts, suppressed feelings that are common to women across society. Others are clear-cut, like the story of Nanu Ben. Nanu Ben made a paltry living by exchanging steel utensils for old clothes. With help from Seva, she got a bank loan to start her own business. Today, she has an annual turnover of 400,000 rupees. Lalita Ben, who made the film on Nanu Ben, is herself a vegetable vendor. Her film won the second prize at a UN conference, second only to a film by CNN.
એવું કે મને કેમેરાની આવડત મળી, આ વિડિયોનો બધો સાધનોની મને જાગૃતિ થઈ, તો આટલે સુધી અમે જ્યા ને મને બહુ સારી રીતે ફાયદો મળ્યો ને અત્યારે મારી પણ લાયકી એમ કે અમારી કુમનામય બહુ લોકોને કે આપણી કુમમાં નામ રાખ્યું આવી બેને કે જેને બિલકુલ અભણ બેન આ રીતે શાકભાજીવાળા બેન આ ફિલ્મ બનાવે તો બહુ મોટું માન।
Conceptual, we get the strength, we get the ideas from our own members, because the stories are from our members, the issues are from our members, so it's their voice. But at the same time, the technical side, we have to be trained. And we do have constraints over there because of such a group with which whom we are working. We can't go to a technical institute. Sometimes we are told that we are not, we don't fulfill the criteria to go into those institutes.
Perhaps an institute may not have recognized the individual need of each woman. Here it is not just an education. It is the raising up of a person, addressing her specific need and integrating her in social chain.
This is what the social fabric is, that unless you recognize the distinctiveness of people at their optimum level and recognize differentiation, this takes us to a very important principle which is being debated today: uniformity versus diversity.
The Indian social structure is a behemoth of over 1 billion people belonging to hundreds of different communities, living at multiple social and economic levels. A society that is founded on the bedrock of a 5,000-year-old civilization, the oldest living civilization in the world. One that is quick to learn new trends, unwilling to give up old traditions. A society which is sometimes volatile, but at most times accommodating and tolerant. And finally, one that in all its diversity adds up to a dynamic and sustainable whole. India, a country of diversity, bound together by its timeless philosophy. A philosophy evolved 5,000 years ago and passed on through generations, faithful to its concepts. The emphasis is to maintain order on the earth and in the universe through certain precepts, the prime one being dharma, the absolute concept of righteousness and duty.
Dharma is the right way of conduct in any situation for any person in a given social position. So part of the dharma is confined to the duties and obligations which traditionally go with that position. And part of your duties are connected with the social position you have in that dharma. In this sense, the dharma of a wife is different from the dharma of a husband. The dharma of a son is different from the dharma of the daughter, and so forth.
The path of dharma begins at birth, when a person's particular destiny is decreed by the stars and the planets. A series of rituals conducted according to the traditions or samskars of his community ascertain an auspicious beginning.
In a narrower sense, the word sanskara is used to refer to the many rituals that people go through life. For instance, the naming ceremony or the thread ceremony or marriage. These are all sanskaras.
According to Indian philosophy, a person's life is divided into 4 stages. The first is brahmacharya, the period where he as a student must devote his time to the pursuit of knowledge, the time where he gets acquainted with his dharma.
When in ecology we discuss intergenerational equity, and there the Grihasthrashrama clearly said that one generation should take the traditions of the earlier generation and hand it on to the next one. Our model clearly says that there is a brahmacharya period, that is pursuit of full knowledge, which is not just celibacy, abstinence and so on. They made a distinction between Brahma Vidya and Vidya. All that universities can teach is primarily Vidya. It is useful up to a point. So our philosophy said that acquire total knowledge of the cosmos, meaning of life, as well as the necessary life skills.
Unless we can bring back the knowledge of the values contained in the Vedas and Upanishads back to the society for the mankind, we cannot protect this world anymore.
An extreme stand, perhaps, but one in keeping with the ancient thought that to defy the social order was to create an imbalance in the universal order.
The Vedas don't reject this material world, but it doesn't end there. That is to say, it accepts the material world and it accepts also the necessity to enrich it both materially and spiritually.
After the brahmacharya or student stage, a person became a householder or grihast. As he married and took over the family, his parents relinquished their position and retired from all household rituals.
One of the problems of the West has been, and is coming into the Indian metros, that children are growing up into adults and the parents have not yet reconciled to vacating space for them. There is some sense of competition between the elder relatives and the next generation relatives. Our philosophy prescribes vanaprasth as an idea. People know how to get involved in life, in many things in life, but they become bandhan, they become a burden. And then finally, in the case of those few who are highly evolved and who have the yogyata for it, you can become a sannyasi.
The ghats or steps at Varanasi, on the banks of the holy river Ganges, is where every Hindu would like his cycle of life to end. For it is believed that one who dies here attains instant moksha or salvation.
जो व्यक्ति संसार के परिवार का और संग्रह की हुई वस्तुओं का जब परित्याग करता है तो वह स्वेच्छा से परित्याग करते समय एक ऐसी आस्था बना ले जो ईश्वर से संलग्नित हो।
The rather unprepossessing buildings that are piled up on the narrow streets of Varanasi seem to reaffirm the fact that those who come here have indeed divested themselves of all material comforts. In the last stage of a man's life, sannyas, he becomes an ideal ascetic whose goal is to clean the soul of all desire. Once that is achieved, there is an eagerness to embrace death, and for the believer, Varanasi is the gateway to heaven.
ऐसा है कि ऐसी इंटरनल फीलिंग होने लगती है जब आदमी की, इंडिविजुअल की, तो फिर वो मुक्त होना ही चाहता है। और यहाँ गंगा का किनारा, विश्वनाथ क्षेत्र, वाराणसी अपने धार्मिक ग्रंथों में जो है सबसे पवित्र जगह इस कार्य के लिए स्मशान भूमि मांगी नहीं गई है, तो इस दृष्टिकोण से घर से ज़्यादा लगाव यहाँ हो जाता है इस उम्र में और इस स्थिति में, इसलिए हम लोग यहाँ हैं।
As Nobel laureate Rabindranath Tagore put it, death is not extinguishing the light, it is putting out the lamp because dawn has come. At Varanasi, it is a release from the cycles of rebirth and reincarnations to which man's soul is bound. It is the completion of a man's dharma.
By and large, our respect for dharma has kept us together as a nation, as a people, and it has protected us. Dharma rakshati rakshataha. Dharma protects its protector.
70 kilometers from Chennai, in Tamil Nadu, a state in South India, are the ruins of a 10th century village, Uttaramerur. It was a part of the mighty Chola Empire. From the inscriptions on the broken walls, we know that the secret of the Chola success was a sound democratic system.
People think that we have borrowed democracy from the United States or United Kingdom, that the British gave us democracy. Stuff and nonsense. We were democratic long before anybody else was democratic. It's not the British who gave us democracy, it's inherent in us, it's in our blood.
The inscriptions tell us that the people of Uttaramerur elected their leaders according to a strict set of rules. A person who stood for elections would have to be educated, and between the ages of 35 and 70 years. He was required to own land and wealth, as one who did not have the experience of taking care of his own wealth would be unable to take care of public wealth. His wealth had to be legal. No one stood for a second chance, as the younger generation had to be given a chance.
What is more interesting is that the inscription also prescribes the disqualification of those persons who are not eligible to stand for election.
Unaccountable wealth or wealth gained by unlawful means was a disqualification. The character of the candidate had to be above board. No criminals could contest the elections. The candidate had to be morally incorruptible. Alcoholics, sexual philanderers, murderers and thieves were disqualified.
What is relevant in modern context is not only that he is not eligible to stand for election, all his relations for nearly 7 generations, they are prohibited from standing for election, which shows the concern of the society to keep the public life as pure as possible.
Uttaramerur was divided into 30 sections, each with its representative. The names of all these 30 men were put into a clay pot and kept in the village square. Then a boy who was a minor drew a slip, and the person whose name was on it was declared elected for the next year. Uttaramerur, laying the foundations of a fair and just democracy over 1,000 years ago. a system in which the voice of the people was heard, for their rulers believed that in their welfare lay the welfare of the state. Can the traditional thought of India be brought to bear upon the modern world? One of the first to try to achieve this synthesis was Mahatma Gandhi. He was a pioneer in the philosophy of decentralized political control, small local solutions, and appropriate technology in harmony with the environment, which is only now finding favor throughout the globe. In a small village in the northeastern state of Assam, the Bodo community has shown that a people's democracy at the grassroots level can be more real than a government democracy, which is very often hijacked by the politics of power. The Bodos have a system of elected representatives called the Afat, a people's forum that settles local disputes and dispenses quick justice.
आंनि अमा खावनाया आं दिनै रायजो राजानि सिगाङाव बुंथिनोसै आंनि अमा खावनाया सोर होननानै नैबे सानैयानो बे सानैयानो
Our entire system of government was based on the panchayat system, which was the most democratic system you can think of, and it has existed for thousands of years. I can't imagine another country which is more democratic.
आं जेखौ मेगन थाइनैसो नुदों आसा अमा लांदों बामनानैबोथ' लांनांगौ बोथोर आरजिनाबो लांनांगौ मानो बुथुर लांदों जों खालायखाबाय आरो आंबो नुखाबाय देख आर बिबो
माब्रै जायामोन अनायालाय खावदोंमोनलै आइफोर आफाफोर दा जोंबो एसे जौ लोंखांबाय माने लामायावहाय मा गोसोखांफ्लांखो अमा गाबनाय खोनानायखाय बे ब्रा लिंलांनायाव आं थाङोमोनलै नङाबा आं थांथारामोन आं बेखौ लिंबाय थादोंमोन न'आव
बिसार मथेथ' बेसोरथ' सिखावखा दा सिखाव खावब्लानो सा खावब्लाबो गिदिर खावब्लाबो 101 थाखा फाइनलै
You have an elder, you have a village headman. He says, yes, I think this is right. That's kind of discussion. I can't imagine in any other country the administration being done so democratically. For all the talk, hard talk, discussion, sometimes one can be abusive also, but at the end of it all, there is respect. The respect for law and order, respect for the wisdom of somebody else, and in the end you feel the problem has been solved satisfactorily.
Democratic institutions, such as the panchayat or the village council, did receive royal patronage over the years. The institution of kingship remained a strong unifying force, even as the welfare of the subjects was a primary concern. Philosophers laid down elaborate guidelines for the kings, and Kautilya, the minister of Chandragupta Maurya, went so far as to say that the welfare of the subjects was the welfare of the king. Kautilya, in his famous manual Arthashastra, or the treatise on governing society, said that the ideal king is a sage whose dharma is to be like a father to his people.
There is another dharma at every level. Raja's dharma, the dharma of the mantri, the adhikari, at every level, if you look at Niti Shatakam.
The king, according to Kautilya, was synonymous with the state. Despite the splendor that surrounded him, he was educated in the ideals of hard work, clean living, and devotion to his subjects. Although ably assisted, it was the king who by example set the tone for an efficient administration.
Originally they said Yatha Raja Tatha Praja, as the king is, so are the citizens. Then it comes even closer that there are lots of little Rajas, Shrestha, each in his own, in the school, in the university, like Nalanda, Takshashila, several other such universities. The Vyapari with his organization, the master craftsman with his guild. At every level you had to set examples. Sayat pramanam kurute lokastad anuvartate. The standards being set by the Shrestha.
For the potter at his wheel, his dharma was to excel in his craft. He was the king in his field. With his commitment and sincerity, he set the standard for his class and raised the standard of society. Making profits was an economic necessity, but it did not overshadow his dharma. Paul Kennedy, in his highly regarded book, The Rise and Fall of the Great Powers, estimates that at one time, India had a monopoly of over 25% of world trade. Insistence on consumer protection ensured goods of a very high quality. Somewhere along the centuries, this concept of dharma seems to have been forgotten, perhaps because of exploitation by those who were unfamiliar with it and took advantage. But there is a revival. India is once again realizing that when its people come together, it can be a huge economic force.
Even today, we recognize that Indian agriculture is on the throes of a fantastic revolution, possible in the 21st century. We have the world's largest cultivated area with one of the lowest per hectare productivities. So if we simply raise that productivity, India can be the granary of the world. Dr. Kurian and the National Dairy Development Board have proven that India can become, it has become the world's largest producer of milk, with 55% of buffaloes in the world population in India.
At Anand, Gujarat, a state in western India, 2 million farmers spread over 12 districts together form the world's largest and most successful milk cooperative, Amul.
When we talk about cooperative, for example, you can have a dairy which is run by a multinational company. It may be a very good dairy, maybe it's run very well, but it is not, in my view, as beautiful as a dairy which is run by the elected representatives of the people themselves, of the farmers themselves.
Every morning, 2 million women across 10,000 villages, bringing in milk worth about 50 million rupees, are now celebrating their economic independence thanks to Amul.
Cooperatives of women are much more better run than cooperatives of men. Man uses the cooperative as his first step towards an MLA-ship or an MP-ship. He is developing himself in order to gain more power for himself, more authority for himself. Whereas a woman is more than happy to live in that village. She is not wanting to go to Delhi.
It is never too early to learn the art of governance. That was Kautya's advice to all princes. Tilonia village in Rajasthan, northern India, believes in it for all its children.
राम कन्या है, वो तीसरी में पढ़ रही है, प्रधानमंत्री 30 बार चुने हुआ है।
मेरा नाम देवकरण है, गांव सरगांव है, दिन को बेट चलाता हूँ और कक्षा 3 में पढ़ता हूँ और बाल संसद के मायने लोकसभा अध्यक्ष हूँ।
मंगलचंद है, गांव मोतीपुरा है और विपक्ष का नेता हूँ।
क्या हो?
विपक्ष का नेता।
Started over 20 years ago, the Bal Sansad or Children's Parliament involves children who work during the day and study at night school. The village is divided into sections, each comprising of one night school. Every school elects its representative for the parliament. These are then further elected to ministerial posts through the correct democratic procedure.
Election क्या होता है? राजा कौन बनता है? शक्ति किसके पास है? पढ़ने के बाद क्या बनेगा? ये सारे सोच बच्चों के साथ एक छोटे से एक मेले में डिस्कस किया गया।
कोई इश्यू नहीं होना चाहता तो फिर काम मुझे करना पड़ता है, जमादारी है पूरी।
और जो काम नहीं करता वो?
फिर तो हटा देंगे, दूसरा मंत्री चुन ले।
The Children's Parliament of Tilonia holds sessions once a month. Problems relating to their school and village are discussed without bias or favor. Young Devkaran here is questioning his own father about certain aberrations at the school where his father is a teacher.
जवाब तो देना ही पड़ा है।
मतलब स्कूल में सच्ची में गड़बड़ थी? तो अब ठीक करेंगे आप कि नहीं?
सुधार करेंगे साहब। स्कूल को अच्छी तरीके से कौन चला सकता है? स्कूल में कौन सा टीचर चाहिए? स्कूल की क्या मांग है? ये पूरे बच्चे अपनी लेवल पे देख रहे हैं और कर रहे हैं।
The children of Tilonia are lucky. They have a chance to understand what it is to be a part of a 1 billion strong democratic nation. Whether the future gives them the right opportunities or not is still a big question. But it is a small stirring that has arisen in the minds of the people. to look back and take inspiration from the past, to look at the present and recognize its shortcomings, and to look at the future with renewed strength and hope in dharma. Jana Gana Mana, the people, the community, the power of their mind.